Okay, in news as a genre, I'm talking from a business perspective, not from content. Okay, content is to be dealt separately. See, most of us we run, the news channels here. I'm having this question for Narayanan from Alliance. Okay, then we'll just take a roll. What I would like to ask you is, Naru, news today is still bought on CPRP. Okay, for people here, CPRP is basically cost per rating point. Somewhere I feel that on behalf of agencies, on behalf of you are a very strong representative of media agencies. You've been really unfair to us. Okay, the first point is you set a benchmark for CPRP. You have a national template of 1800 or 2000 or 2500. And you bias on that basis. As such, our genre is so small. Okay, ultimately, when it comes to a point when you have to bias, the rates, other than a few national channels, I'm talking on behalf of both national and regional, our rates just don't increase. Okay, and a national CPRP of 2000 for a channel which does about 30-35 GRPs, then you can imagine at what rate you would want to buy. Okay, now the point what I want to ask you, is this basically you're trying to, you are actually in a mood not to increase rates. To avoid giving us a rate increase, you have these new terminologies of, national CPRP and so on and so forth. This is posing to be a big problem for us because 80% of the news channels today are FTAs. Our survival depends on people like you. So over to you and then we'll just go. And I'm expecting some gossip reply from you. Huh? We should go. We are all going live.
Firstly, good afternoon to all of you. It's great being here. Coming to the question specifically, my response to that is, firstly, news cannot be bought on CPRP. I think from whatever experience of 30 years and across media, and especially at Alliance, is one of the largest buyers of news in this country. I can clearly say that news is always on ERs and kind of CPRPs is as a byproduct, by the way, in wherever it comes in. That's one way of looking at it. The other way, I just wanted to bring in a perspective where even if you look at the BARC ratings, by virtue of ratings, news channels delivered much more than news. Sorry, music channels delivers much more than news. But reality is whenever there is a burning issue or whenever there is a good cause or a great cause, the whole nation sits up and watches news. So I think that's the reality, which we have to accept it. So news channels cannot be ignored even for a normal FMCG plans and even a kind of a regular plans. So I think one needs to also go beyond ratings, and specifically I can give you some examples of key brands who have built, given the agency I represent, Alliance, there are a lot of brands which are built completely on news. I can give an example of Asian Shoes, which is a very challenger brand in a competing footwear, fiercely contested market, leveraging on only one program for 2 years or just in a prime time slot. And that's built great business for them. So where are ratings? And then there is a disparity between the ratings and actually what works in building a brand. So one needs to go beyond that. And secondly, coming to news specifically at the agency, we have actually looked at very robust and intensive methodology to capture what works. In fact, we do a lot of ROI analytics and a lot of econometric modeling to find out spot placement leading to outcomes. So I think somewhere one needs to move beyond ratings to measuring outcomes for the brand. And given we work with a lot of the new age brands, I think where they have a lot of data. So you match the data of where the spot appears, whether it was a 7 p.m. or a 9 p.m. or a 10 p.m. news, and we could see a delta moving. I think that's where the whole conversation I want to take it. It's like moving away from this CPRP bit to a kind of outcome base. And even within that, let me highlight from whatever analytics we have seen, it's the number of spots per day. The higher threshold spots gives a better response. If you go with very minimum spots on the news channel, it's a complete waste of money. I think somewhere, we need to have robust analytics to actually support and try and test different scenarios where we are able to prove the efficacy of the medium. But from whatever we have seen, news does build credibility, it builds trust to the brand, and it also helps build sales in many cases. So I think that's my response to your question, and if I've answered it the way it was expected, or I hope that is gossip to this question.
Actually, no. But I'll accept, but I'll take it because you still, uh, you've not been able to, you've given a reply. I don't think it will convince most of the sellers here. Anyway, I'll now come to Pankaj. I'm coming back to you.
Yeah.
Over to you, Pankaj.
Okay, so on the gossip side, it's more of an interesting statistic since I'm a data scientist. Do we have any research people from research departments? I'm sure there are lots of them, right? So this is very interesting. It's simple maths. The question of sampling size has been done to death ever since LV, you and I used to fight.
That's
From
my
22
next
years ago.
question. So don't
That
let
has
out
been
the
done to
answer.
death. So we
Okay.
can't, there's a research constraint. So during the days of TAM or during the days of Bach, we've come 22 years. I remember LV and I first met at the Leela in Bombay, and we had the same argument on National Geographic not being adequately represented. It's surprising to see that 22 years later, the topic is still the same. So I think it is fair to assume that sample nahi change ho sakta. There is a constraint. Ho sakta to 22 saal mein ho chuka hota by now, as Sashi also rightly said. The problem, I think, is elsewhere on the CPRP, to answer your question. So let's take a real example. If you look at English news as a genre, since Karthik was here, right? So English news, Arora ji, the average reach of English news is about 1% in a week. Means 1% of the total audiences watch English news in a given week. So let's take the sample size of 50,000 meters across the country, and let's take a leading market like Mumbai. So Mumbai would be what, some 2,000 people meters. If the reach is 1%, that means 1% of 2,000 people have broadly participated in contributing to the viewership. So 1% of 2,000 for a market like Bombay is 20 people meters in a week. So are 20 a representative sample? I don't think so. But even if 20 is representative, how many in a day? So you can't divide it by 7 because of duplicated content, duplicated audiences. But that's another 5 to 6 people in a day in Mumbai actually watch the leading English news channel on the panel. So in my view, I was one of the first few guys. We did a huge CPRP buy when I was with UTV in 2007 with Palmolive, I think. That was a huge figure. उस समय तक CPRP relevant था because the number of channels were lesser. At this point in time, I think this entire debate of CPRP to me seems flawed. It makes no sense. So
That's what I was asking. So
did I answer the question that it not?
No, both of you, whoever can answer.
Bill.
So which means the point is, you're actually using this as a terminology to bring down our rates even further.
No, I'm not saying.
No,
oh yeah.
I'm saying today, okay, now another, don't think I'm using you as a tool on behalf of everyone. See, another point is, every time when an account goes for a pitch, when it goes from agency A to B to C to D, the only thing which comes to us saying that an account has gone for a pitch, rate or kam karo. GCs ka, we will not touch, movies we will not touch, but news sell, no, you bring down our rates by, correct, Akshata? I hope you agree with me. So I'm saying, like how he said, Pankaj said, shouldn't we be growing beyond this? I think to counter this, I think Anil, the last man there, will also answer. So, sorry, I just wanted to interrupt.
Yeah, absolutely. You should be growing beyond this. I mean, it's a no-brainer if you're having the same discussion after 22 years. Exactly the same discussion, right? So, there is a huge constraint, and I think Sashi also put it brilliantly. The gap is not technology. Right now, on my phone, I have an audio measurement device. So, if there is any live streaming happening, and that is already being mapped, you can actually know what content is being watched. This technology is not new, right? Zapper had done it in Bangalore. Other companies have done it. We've got it. Audio mapping is much simpler, but the problem is in taking the sample up. So you can take this to millions, but the problem lies in acceptance from the industry. It's not to do with technology, right? So digital is a brilliant example. If you are hell-bent on continuing with the same format, then really doesn't work. So the problem is not Bach or anyone who works with Bach. The problem is the stakeholders wanting to continue with the same terminologies of CPRP. मेरे हिसाब से क्या होना चाहिए? CPRP, in my view, should not be there. News, with all due respect to all the news owners here, if you put it very broadly from a consumer point of view, right? From a viewer, if you do good research, you will understand that हर कोई एक ही चीज बोल रहा है अलग-अलग formats में at different points in time. So everyone is giving the same news at different points in time. So it becomes it becomes mostly commodity. The key differentiator on content today or content consumption is availability. How many homes are getting it? That's why FTA content gets much higher reach than pay TV. So I think the best measurement here is to take the availability of content across some 161 million homes, one. Two, the availability of content on digital, right? So what's being watched on YouTube, on the browser, on an in-house app, or a Z5 or an MX player. You marry all of that data, you have a very strong indicator of how many people are watching which content. And then you have some kind of a quality survey to rate it in terms of quality. As simple as that. I think that will be a much stronger parameter. And then you can come out with better derivatives of CPRPs.
Yeah, I think I agree with what Pankaj just now said, that you have to move beyond these older metrics, take a 360 view, TV plus digital. Also, I think in India we have not done enough on innovation in content pricing. Think of new models, flexible models of pricing content, especially with so much more consumption happening online on an on-demand basis, where I'm not tuning into linear all the time. There can be different ways of pricing content. And I think that would give you that diversity, and that's probably where you can demand that premium or value. I think what TV9 is doing with the OTT model for English content, news content, I think is very interesting. I think those are the kinds of experiments that you should build on to take this industry beyond these, older constructs which probably made sense a decade back, don't make sense anymore with increasingly hybrid consumption, which is not necessarily, real-time linear. It's more on demand when I want to watch it and on the kinds of devices that I want to watch.
LB, for a moment, think you're the same old media planner from Chaitra and HTA. Have a heart and answer.
Okay, I think news is all about being regional, actually, okay? Local and hyper-local in nature. Okay? In that kind of circumstances, you need to think about, as a body, think about what is the next step that you need to go into, actually. One is having an overall industry measurement at a national level, etc. But given the fact that your reach is all about regional and local, is there a way you can create measurements in those hyper-local areas effectively, cost-effectively, at the same time giving you ROI on your businesses, actually? And that's where technology comes into play, actually. While technology is available, I don't think the industry has used it effectively in nature. RPD is a beautiful, strong solution that's available in the marketplace. Okay? Return path data through the set-top boxes. Return path data through the mobile devices. Return path data through your broadband connected television sets, actually. The world is changing. The audiences are changing. Okay? As penetration of set-top boxes has happened since 2018, when the government finally rolled out fully 100% the set-top box regime, 100% of the homes in the country are connected, actually, except for a few homes in Chennai, probably. Now, is there a way to exploit that? In the last 6 years, we have had experience using return path data on Tata Sky set-top boxes, actually. Okay? It is incredible. The difference between BARC and return path data is not the fact that the trends are different, actually, but it gives you granular data. Data at a microscopic level, actually. Because you have around 100,000 set-top boxes only in Manipur itself, actually. Okay. So with that kind of a scale, you can dissect consumption data on television even more effectively in nature. Somebody like, say, Sanjeev, for example, who owns cable network, actually, or Jaggi, for example, in Orissa. Okay. Why not move on to the path of creating set-top boxes that enable you to provide data itself. So you're not then going back